우시더라고요. 그런 장면들이 어쩌면 저를 계속 이렇게 하게 하는 그런 원동력이 되는 것 같기도 해요. 해외 나가면 오히려 더 애국심이 생기더라고요. 그래서 세계 시장으로 나가고 싶어요. 공연이 될 수도 있고 교육이 될 수도 있을 것 같아요. 이런 한글을 쓰는 행위 자체가 지금은 사실 손글씨도 잘 안 쓰는 시대지만 오히려 이런 시대일수록 되게 더 가치 있는 일이 될 것 같다고 이제 제가 믿거든요. 그리고 제가 그런 역할을 할 수 있으면 되게 좋을 것 같아요.
In our headlines on this Thursday, February 12th, here in South Korea, exports of ICT products in January hit a record high for the month, reaching above $29 billion, with semiconductors spearheading the shipments. Meanwhile, U.S. employment expands above expectations in January, but market experts warn against celebration, pointing to the worrisome numbers of 2025. And Culture Minister Choi Hyang sits down with members of the media 6 months into his term in office to share a more optimistic tone. We tell you more. A presidential luncheon today with leaders of South Korea's main political parties was cancelled. According to Presidential Chief of Staff Kang Hun-sik, the president had invited the heads of the ruling Democratic Party and the opposition People Power Party to discuss national affairs, including public livelihood and bipartisan partnership over lunch. However, opposition party leader Chang Dong-hyuk earlier this morning announced his absence from the luncheon, citing objection from several PPP Supreme Council members. The Blue House, in response, shared deep regret over the cancellation in a briefing by Senior Secretary for Political Affairs, Hong Ik-pyo. The launch of a special parliamentary committee on this Thursday to fast-track legislation related to South Korea's investment pledge in the U.S. was marked by a heated war of words between rival parties. The opposition People Power Party found fault with the ruling Democratic Party's unilateral passage of judicial reform bills in a committee meeting back on Wednesday. Despite the initial dispute, the committee vowed to ensure that relevant parliamentary procedure for the investment bill takes place on time. Exports of ICT products in January hit a record high for the month, reaching above $29 billion, with semiconductors spearheading the shipments. Our Kim Do-yeon covers the latest numbers.
South Korea's information and communication technology sector has started the year by shattering previous records. According to the Trade Ministry on Thursday, ICT exports in January reached $29.05 billion, a 78.5% increase on year. With exports at $14.09 billion, the nation posted a massive trade surplus of $14.96 billion. This historic performance was driven almost entirely by semiconductors. Chip exports alone more than doubled to $20.55 billion. Breaking that down, the surge was led by memory chips, which skyrocketed 154.4% to $15.72 billion, fueled by demand for high-value products like HBM and DDR5 chips. This is likely to continue for the foreseeable future, as there's a severe shortage of HBM chips amid the AI boom.
Capacity will start to expand from the end of this year into 2027. However, until 2028, most supply is already locked in through long-term agreements, so the shortage will persist. Whether the shortage continues after 2028 will depend on how much demand increases by then.
This sold-out market has driven up export values across all major regions. The value of shipments to China, South Korea's largest market, rose nearly 95% to $11.76 billion. Exports to Vietnam jumped 63.6% to $4.67 billion, while exports to the European Union increased roughly 31%. Notably, exports to the United States recorded triple-digit growth, surging 110.7% to $4.62 billion as American big tech firms scramble to secure essential AI infrastructure. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., employment expands above expectations in January, but market experts warn against celebration, pointing to the worrisome numbers of 2025. Our Oh Soo-young explains.
U.S. job growth unexpectedly picked up in January, easing immediate concerns of a sharp labour market slowdown. But experts warn of a long-term fragility. On Wednesday, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that employers added 130,000 jobs in January, far above market expectations, with major gains in healthcare. The unemployment rate ticked down 0.1 percentage points to 4.3%, while wage growth held up, with average hourly earnings rising about 0.4% in January. Yet the broader picture on jobs is less rosy. Annual benchmark revisions show that total job growth last year was dramatically slower than previously estimated, slashed from around 584,000 jobs to just 181,000. This means average monthly job growth was roughly 15,000 jobs, with employment gains concentrated heavily in healthcare and with minor gains in the retail and utility sectors. Meanwhile, job losses were recorded in financial services, transportation, mining and logging industries. Economists warn that the headline gains could be masking deeper weaknesses in the labour market, as broader losses in pay and income point to uneven growth.
Both of those metrics showed a spike in the second half of January. For the lost pay and income one, we'd actually seen this upward trend begin in late 2025. But what changed in 2026 is that it spread from more just the lower income group who were more isolated and kind of experiencing tougher economic conditions. It spread to hit the high income group. And that's kind of ringing alarm bells for me because of what we've seen with the K-shaped economy and because of how important that group has been for driving overall economic growth.
With hiring slowing and unemployment stable, many analysts believe the U.S. job market is entering a period of stagnation. Experts say the January report is likely to influence Federal Reserve expectations, likely adding to policymakers' reluctance to cut interest rates soon, as they continue to monitor inflation. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Trade Minister Yeo Han-gu was at an event organized by the American Chamber of Commerce here in South Korea on this Thursday to reaffirm Seoul's commitment to the terms of its trade deal with the Trump administration. Our correspondent Park Jun-han reports.
Trade Minister Yo Han-gu said on Thursday that Korea and the U.S. are going through pivotal moments in terms of bilateral trade. Yo's remarks were delivered at a critical time as Korea and the United States continue their high-level talks on tariff-related trade issues after the Special Act on the Management of Korea-U.S. Strategic Investments was proposed last November.
Following the proposal of the Special Act on Korea-U.S. Strategic Investment last November in our National Assembly, a dedicated special committee was established on February 9th to facilitate its passage. We are making every effort to see this legislation enacted as soon as possible. We are also working closely with our U.S. counterpart to implement the follow-up measures, including non-tariff issues outlined in the Korea-U.S. joint fact sheet.
During his remarks, Minister Yo expressed appreciation for record-high U.S. foreign direct investment in Korea last year, driven by continued partnerships with American companies. He also pledged to faithfully implement the bilateral tariff agreement and proactively share progress with the U.S. side and the business community to enhance stability and deepen economic ties. AMCHAM Chairman and CEO James Kim, the host of the event, reaffirmed AMCHAM's full support for the Korean government's efforts and its commitment to close collaboration for a stable, forward-looking trade relationship.
I discussed with President Lee Jae-myung during our roundtable 2 weeks ago. And I look forward to working with President Lee and his administration to expand the number of global companies, regional headquarters here in Korea. Korea has less than 100 today. And what I told President Lee is I'd love to see, under his tenure, the number going from 100 to 1,000.
In a closed-door session, Minister Yo and Chairman Kim reportedly held in-depth exchanges on evolving global trade dynamics, bilateral investment cooperation, and steps to improve Korea's foreign direct investment environment. 박준환, Arirang News.
In other news, U.S. President Donald Trump has spoken of historic deals with countries including South Korea and Japan to boost American coal exports. Our Kim Bo-kyung has details.
President Trump said Wednesday local time that his administration had signed historic trade agreements with South Korea, Japan, India, and other countries to dramatically increase coal exports. These remarks came while he was announcing policies at the White House to boost the coal industry. Previously, in July last year, Trump posted on Truth Social that Seoul will purchase $100 billion worth of liquefied natural gas and other energy-producing materials. There was no direct mention of coal at that time, nor a coal export agreement in a joint fact sheet released in November, so it remains unclear if such a deal between Seoul and Washington has been reached or not. While touting it as the most reliable energy resource for almost everyone, he referred to a series of measures to expand the coal-fired power generation industry and signed related executive orders. Included in these were instructions to the Tennessee Valley Authority, a U.S. federal electric utility, to continue operating two major coal plants, Cumberland and Kingston, which had been scheduled for closure. He also ordered the Energy Department to provide funding to keep the coal plants open.
I'm directing the Department of Energy to issue funds to coal plants in West Virginia, Ohio, North Carolina, and Kentucky to keep them online and keep those plants open.
In particular, he directed the Defense Department to secure long-term power purchase agreements with coal plants to ensure a more stable power supply and a stronger, more resilient power grid. He then pointed out that he approved dozens of projects to reopen coal mines to boost the coal industry.
But in 1 year of Trump, we've already approved over 70 permits for very big, very powerful mines that are going to be with us for many, many years to come. And we did that over the last 30 days.
Such moves by President Trump are seen as running counter to the global trend toward phasing out coal and expanding the use of renewable energy. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Culture Minister Cho Hyung sat down with members of the media to mark his first 6 months in office and touched upon BTS and more. Our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo files this report.
From crisis to hope, South Korea's culture minister says he's witnessed renewed optimism in the cultural sector over the past 6 months. He noted that the industry's core strength and passion remains strong, adding that K-culture continues to expand its global reach. One of the ministry's key priorities is BTS's upcoming comeback show to be held in March at Gwanghwamun Square, one of Seoul's most symbolic landmarks, known for major rallies and public gatherings.
It's grateful and meaningful that globally renowned artist BTS have chosen Gwanghwamun as their new starting point. That's why we're doing our best while working closely with BTS so that we can showcase Korea's traditional heritage and cultural essence to the world.
The minister added that support measures are also being prepared for international visitors attending the concert, stressing that collaborative concerts with Korean artists will extend beyond BTS. Choi also reaffirmed efforts to crack down on ticket scalping at large events such as concerts, noting that related legislation will soon be introduced to penalize resales at inflated prices. The authorities are additionally discussing measures to address accommodation price gouging in concert hosting areas, with solutions expected to be unveiled soon. Through the Presidential Cultural Exchange Committee launched 4 months ago, the minister said officials are also exploring ways to accelerate the global spread of K-culture.
We're planning to host a massive global concert in Korea by the end of next year, bringing together artists from all major entertainment agencies. We might be able to potentially integrate dedicated K-culture spaces at venues for those concerts, just like Korea House at the Olympics, offering immersive cultural experiences.
Choi further stressed the need for more large-capacity concert halls in Korea, with efforts underway to build venues capable of accommodating up to 50,000 people. The minister noted that additional financial support for the cultural sector will be provided, adding that there's a broad consensus within the government, including the president, on the significance of strengthening the industry. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
And global K-pop stars BTS and BLACKPINK are turning Korea's historic landmarks into entertainment stages. In fact, BLACKPINK is teaming up with the National Museum of Korea for a cultural campaign. The girl group will record audio guides for major artifacts, host a session for its new album at the museum, and light up the building's exterior in pink. Meanwhile, BTS will hold its comeback concert next month at Gwanghwamun Square, including a performance at Gyeongbokgung Palace to reflect the symbolic meaning of the title of its latest album, Arirang. A forum on building a Korean Peninsula KTX rail network opened at the National Assembly on this Thursday, with lawmakers and experts pointing out that existing KTX services have not fully addressed regional imbalance nor congestion in the capital area. The forum comes ahead of the government's finalization of the 5th National Rail Network Plan next year, with organizers calling for a new north-south high-speed rail access to directly link inland regions with the coastal Honam area. Participants said the plan could cut travel time between Seoul and southern coastal cities to some 2 hours, while creating new industrial and tourism growth corridors beyond the traditional Gyeongbu line. Over in neighboring Japan, momentum is building for constitutional reform following the ruling party's historic landslide victory in the lower house snap election. Our Yoon-jin reports.
The Japanese government, led by Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, now backed with a 2/3 majority in the lower house of parliament, is set to proceed with constitutional revision. The Liberal Democratic Party, which gained 316 of the 465 seats in the House of Representatives in the February 8th election, has constitutional revision as a party line. In 2018, under then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the LDP compiled a 4-point draft for amending the Constitution, which proposed clarification of the Self-Defense Forces status in Article 9, creation of an emergency powers clause, dissolving merged prefectural electoral districts in upper house elections, and the improvement of the education system. According to Kyodo News on Wednesday, 403 out of the 465 elected members responded to a pre-election survey sent by the media outlet. Of those, 81.1% backed a revision to Article 9 to clarify the legal status of the self-defense forces, and 83.4% favored adding an emergency clause, giving the government more power in the event of a major disaster or armed attack. Only 9.4% were opposed. A joint survey by the Asahi Shimbun and the University of Tokyo yielded similar results, with 80% of those elected favoring the inclusion of the SDF status. Also, when asked if the current constitution needs changing, an overwhelming 93% of the elected members supported revisions. That's a significant jump from the 67% support rate recorded during the 2024 general election. Opposition, on the other hand, plummeted to 3%, down from 23% in the previous election, while neutral responses stood at just 4%. The Asahi Shimbun noted that this is the first time since they began tracking in 2003 that pro-revisionist sentiment has exceeded 90% in a national election for either the upper or lower house. When the LDP's 316 seats are combined with the 36 seats of its coalition partner, the ruling bloc exceeds the constitutional amendment threshold on its own in the House of Representatives. However, a two-thirds majority is required in both houses of the Diet. In the House of Councilors, the ruling party holds only about 120 seats, short of a majority, with the next upper house elections to be held in 2028. 이은진, Arirang News.
Hello and welcome. I am your AI sports correspondent Arirang. This section features AI-generated content and scripts, bringing you the latest news from the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. Here are our top stories. South Korean teenagers Tae-ga-on and Lee Tae-woon both secured spots in the snowboard half-pipe finals on Wednesday at Livingno Snow Park. In the women's event, 17-year-old Tae-ga-on scored 82.25 points in her first run to finish 6th among 24 boarders. She remains a podium contender, alongside American Chloe Kim, who led the field with 90.25 points. In the men's qualification, 19-year-old Lee Tae-woon scored 82.00 points to finish 9th, securing his place in Friday's 12-man final. Both athletes will have 3 runs in their respective finals to determine the medal standings. South Korea's Gu Kyung-min finished 10th in the men's 1,000-meter speed skating final on Wednesday at the Milano Speed Skating Stadium. The 21-year-old Olympic debutant finished the race in 1 minute, 8.53 seconds, finishing 2.25 seconds behind the winner. American Jordan Stolz won the gold medal with a new Olympic record of 1 minute, 6.28 seconds. Gu stated after the race that he executed his plan well despite the high stakes. He now shifts his focus to the 500-meter sprint on Saturday. Swiss alpine skier Franjo van Almen won the men's Super G on Wednesday, claiming his 3rd gold medal of the Games. The 24-year-old beat American Ryan Cochran-Siegel by 0.13 seconds. This victory makes van Almen the first male alpine skier since 1968 to win 3 gold medals in a single Winter Olympics. He joins legends Jean-Claude Killy and Tony Saylor as the only men to achieve this feat. Van Almen decided not to compete in the giant slalom, ending his Olympic campaign with 3 titles. Norwegian biathlete Sturla Holmøy apologized on Wednesday for overshadowing teammate Johan Olav Bone's gold medal victory with a live television confession regarding his personal life. The apology follows a Tuesday broadcast where Grade, after winning bronze, revealed on camera that he had been unfaithful to his partner. Grade stated on Wednesday that Bond deserved the full attention of the media and admitted he was not thinking clearly when he shared the story. Meanwhile, Grade's ex-girlfriend told local media that the public declaration was painful and difficult to endure. Before we head out, let's look ahead. Appearing now on your screen are the current medal standings and the upcoming schedule for the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026.
Dust is causing trouble again today across the country. Thick fine dust has covered the central region as well as Jeollabuk-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces. In Chungcheongbuk-do province, ultrafine dust levels spiked to the very bad range. There's more on the way. Additional dust from overseas moved in, and the hazy conditions will likely linger through tomorrow. In the meantime, the East Coast areas remain extremely dry. A wildfire broke out in Gangwon-do province earlier today, and fire crews are still working to contain it. So please be extra careful with anything that can cause a fire. Seoul will start off at 2 degrees Celsius tomorrow morning, with Chuncheon and Daegu at -2 degrees. Daily highs will rise to 11 degrees in Seoul, 13 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju. Temperatures are also on the rise. Early spring conditions will be seen for the time being. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up next is our daily panel session.
Right now, the new shopping game is starting.
How to survive in Korea. One room. So, you're surviving in Korea if you've signed a contract for a one room. Obviously, you're a pro. But the real deal begins now. Step 1. Housewarming. No need to buy toilet paper, diffusers or hand soap. You'll get them soon enough as housewarming gifts. And some are bound to pile up. There's nothing better to serve your guests than milpaeyu nabe. If you have Korean friends coming over, don't forget the extra garlic. Step 2. Garbage disposal. With great power comes great responsibility. You've had a good time, so let's get to work. It might be tempting to sweep everything into a trash can, but you have to separate your garbage. Not bothered? Beware that negligence is punished with a fine or public humiliation. Step 3. Drying rack. You're excited to live alone in Korea, but the fate of these items, hanger, storage, or a hanger. Go get fresh coffee outside. Jogging doesn't cost anything, and nothing beats instant rice. But keep one item around so that you don't get too lonely. Step 4. Pros of living alone. No mum. Cons of living alone. No mum. A new towel doesn't magically appear. You have to do the laundry regularly. If anyone gives a towel as a souvenir, take it. Get rid of mold immediately. Don't be lazy with the vacuum cleaner. Housework is an endless affair. Overwhelmed? Give your mum a call and thank her for everything she's done. Did you survive in your one room? Wait, you have an unwanted visitor. Call someone you fancy. Could be the right person for the job.
Held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit.
A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi exchanged well wishes after the latter garners a historic majority in a landslide snap election victory. We have more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for this Thursday, February 12th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. Now today we delve into diplomacy as South Korea and Japan reaffirm their commitment to productive partnership to weather the current climate of geopolitical uncertainty. For more on this, I have freelance journalist Rafael Rashid here in the studio. Rafael, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
I also have Chloe Bogno with French broadcaster France 24 with us. Chloe, it's great to have you here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Rafael, we shall start with you. So, as I mentioned in the short clip, there were warm words exchanged between President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi following her historic win in the snap election. What exactly was said and what were your takeaways?
Right, so President Lee posted his congratulations on social media just a few days ago after Takaichi's Liberal Democratic Party secured the 2/3 majority in the 465 member House of Representatives. And so Lee wrote that he sincerely congratulated Takaichi on the election victory and hopes that Japan will continue to develop under her leadership. I think the tone of his message, I thought it was quite warm in itself. Lee referenced the January summit, of course, that happened in Nara, saying that the two countries had taken a confident step forward towards a new 60 years of relationships and expressed hope to kind of expand on this cooperation based on mutual trust and solidarity. And also he added that he looked forward to, of course, seeing Takaichi again, inviting her to Korea for this so-called shuttle diplomacy. I believe, the talks are that it might happen in Lee's hometown of Andong, so we'll see if that actually happens. But Takaichi also responded in kind, thanking Lee for his warm congratulations and also emphasized that Japan and Korea are important neighbors, of course, who must cooperate as partners on all sorts of things, including the international challenges that they all face. She also highlighted their shared understanding of their strategic importance of the relationship and hoped that, of course, this relationship would develop further for this kind of future-oriented relationship that she has been the two sides have been talking about. So I think in this sense, there's real pragmatism. Of course, we hear this word every day from the Lee government. This pragmatism is driving this warmth forward. And I think at this time in particular, both sides need one another probably more than ever. Of course, Japan faces mounting tensions when it comes to China, of course, over Taiwan issues. And so I think Japan needs Seoul as a kind of security partner. And then on the other hand, we have South Korea also trying to play a balancing act between Beijing and Tokyo, again, managing North Korean threats. So overall, I think there's definitely a lot of pragmatism in this relationship, and it will, of course, this election victory has been, some people are saying in Seoul, there might be some concerns that the party, Takeichi's party, might push forward with some kind of nationalist agendas. So there's a little bit of concern, but overall I think this will probably go forward in the right direction.
Right. Staying with that then, Chloe, the media, it's been very quick to assert that Prime Minister Takaichi's election victory sets the stage for a rightward shift with regard to Japan's policies. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, so as Rafael was saying, there's the idea that with this landslide victory, the party of Prime Minister Takaichi is going to be able to enhance the conservative views that they have. So the Prime Minister, she has been speaking about the fact that she wants to make Japan strong and prosperous. So there is, I would say, 5 different points, major areas where we will see probably some big evolution and big movements now that the party of Prime Minister Takaichi is in power. So the first one will be defense. We've been speaking about that quite a lot already. We know that she wants to move around the constitution to be able to enhance military capabilities for Japan. So she wants a revision on security and defense policies by December, so next year. She also wants to lift the ban on Japan exports, exportation of weapons. And she wants actually to be moving away from the pacifist agreement that was set up in the Japanese constitution post-war. So that's one of the things we can see. So someone might be a bit pleased about that, which is President Donald Trump, because Takaichi has been saying that she will want to follow up a pledge that she's been doing with the American president, saying that Japan annual defense budget will double to reach the level of 2% of gross domestic product by March that could be invested into Japanese defense. So that's the first point. Second thing is diplomacy. So again, Japan wants to get even closer to the US. We've seen that with their recent meeting between Donald Trump and the Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi. And they also, at the opposite side, the very fierce position against China. So as Rafael was speaking about, the stance of the Prime Minister on Taiwan in November has been putting a lot of very ice relationship between the two countries, and it might not change with the Prime Minister getting more power in her own country and being backed up more by the lower house. Then the third point would be immigration. She wants tougher policies. It's going in the same way, in the direction of a growing far-right position in the country, saying that, according to them, the fact that the previous party has been promoting foreign labor as a way to a solution for the declining population in Japan has actually been making Japanese community what they say is unsafe and has caused cultural clashes. So in January, so last month actually, the party of Takaichi has been approving tougher rules on permanent residency, on naturalization, for example, so making it a bit harder for foreigners to get settled in Japan and to work there. She also has a conservative view on the societal point of view. So she wants to preserve traditional values. She's for the rule of the imperial family, male-only rule of succession that was kind of discussed recently because of the change of mind in the modern day society. So she has been saying that she wants to say with the male-only rule. She was also, for example, against the same-sex marriage. So that's to show the most conservative views on society. And then the last thing that could also be something that South Korea needs to watch out is the economy. She wants to stop the rising prices, but doing that will go with a boost from the government spending and a lot of help from the government in a lot of different funding. She has already set up 17 strategic areas where the government will be giving funds and helping industry to try to make the product more competitive, for example, in food, energy, defense, supply chains. So that's to be seen now that she has more powers, all things will be able to develop and what will be the priority for the government.
Indeed. And something else that Japan's neighbors will be watching for is that in an interview with Fuji Television, she spoke of wanting to create an environment that allows a Yasukuni visit to be understood by Japan's neighbors. Now, she has been a regular visitor, but she stopped. She refrained from visiting the Tokyo shrine, the Yasukuni shrine, once she entered office. How feasible is the possibility of setting up an environment in which Japan's neighbors are understanding of such a visit?
Yeah, I think the desire maybe, I think, is aspirational at best. Yeah, I think, quite frankly, it would be very difficult to achieve this. Of course, the core problem here, it's not just that Japan wants to mourn the war dead. This is the Yasukuni Shrine, specifically enshrines Class A war criminals among the 2.5 million people who died in conflict since the 19th century. So this is just not any place per se. The shrine and its museum present what many in South Korea, but also in China, they view as whitewashing of Japan's aggressions of the past. So I think that's why high-level visits have repeatedly triggered this intense backlash and, if not diplomatic crises. And of course, I think no sitting Prime Minister in Japan has visited since Shinzo Abe did, I believe it was in 2013. And of course, Takaichi herself has visited on many occasions before taking office, of course. So, you know, if we're going to move forward, I think for these neighbors to kind of move forward and accept this Yasukuni shrine, I think we need several things. I think first we would need a much stronger and repeated acts of contrition from Japan. You know, clear, unambiguous statements about its past and kind of statements of remorse that are not just a quick thing, but sustained over time. I think also Japan might have to elevate other alternative memorial sites so that they can offer, you know, their offerings and rituals to this other elevated site, while also maybe framing Yasukuni visits as purely personal or religious. I think also you would definitely need a lot more sustained improvement in bilateral ties between two sides, strong enough so that the governments can choose this muted criticism as opposed to complete escalation on both sides. So you really need to have a solid relationship. And I think, you know, of course, the two sides at the moment, South Korea and Japan, are trying to do that, but I don't think it's something that will, you know, magically happen overnight. And of course, there is the China factor as well. The kind of structural limitations, if you will. Some scholars say that China's party state uses wartime trauma and memory for domestic legitimacy purposes, and so they might have a strong incentive to kind of keep Yasukuni symbolically toxic, if you will. It's used for these domestic purposes. And of course, in South Korea, you have competitive, democratic kind of politics and also civic groups that might object to any softening in stance. So any softening in stance, I think, could be quite risky for the leaders here. So overall, I think it would be difficult. It would be, I think, again, probably the best thing would be a situation where if something happens, we would have criticism, maybe formulaic criticism, but also the ability to move forward and also, you know, deal with that separately and continue the relationship going forward. So I think even that could be ambitious in itself.
Right, and speaking about going forward then, Chloe, beyond their dispute over history, how does Japan's potential shift to the right in terms of policies look to affect its ties with South Korea?
So if we're just looking at the overall grip on the lower house that now the party of the Prime Minister has, which is unprecedented in history since the post-war Japan system. So some pundits are saying that it will actually make Japan more stable in a political way. And so for South Korea, it would be an easier way to do diplomacy and to have discussion. So as we were saying, and as Rafael was saying, in the message to congratulate the Prime Minister's victory, Lee Jae-myung was speaking about the fact that he's happy for the shuttle diplomacy to keep on going. And it's true that it's obviously always the way in diplomacy is the president or the head of state will also meet the other head of state, while afterwards, when you're going back to your country, the discussion and the internal politics and game of politics with the parliament or everything can be sometimes difficult when the legislative and executive powers are not together. That can also happen in France, for example. So this is something that's made to balance the powers, but in the same time, for the partners outside, it can be kind of difficult because you can only speak with one head of the two powers at a time. So the fact that the country is now more stable will help probably to get things moving in the diplomacy sector. But then the other thing is, as we were speaking about the conservative movement and the fact that Japan is going to move on several areas, there is a risk of raising confrontation. Let's keep this word kind of lower degree, but things can be a bit more confrontational with South Korea. For example, the fact that the relationship with the neighbors might be harder to compensate. For example, the relationship with China. We know that South Korea is trying to stay on good terms with China at the moment. We discussed already the fact that Japan has been having confrontations with China. The fact that Japan also wants to raise its defense and its army expansion could also be raising tension in the peninsula with North Korea, for example, with China, with Russia. And then for South Korea, we'll also have to keep an eye on that and be able to respond and maybe also offer either help or criticism for its ally, Japan. And the last thing is probably the thing that might be the strongest one in the near future will be the economical competition between the two neighbors, because obviously the exchange are going on between South Korea and Japan. But the truth is, if Japan is really trying to boost their competitiveness and making government funding into some specific sectors, then those products might be more competitive than the South Korean ones, and then other countries might want to go buy from Japan rather than from South Korea. So that's something that could be a bit of a competition edge between the two countries.
Right. And with regard to broader regional diplomacy, Rafael, just days after Seoul and Tokyo agreed to resume their maritime search and rescue exercises, there were reports of a similar resumption between Seoul and Beijing. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Right, so defense officials from South Korea and China, they met in Beijing last week for their 21st bilateral defense policy meeting, the first in-person talks of such a kind in, I believe, 3 years. And they discussed resuming joint search and rescue exercises in the Yellow Sea after a 15-year hiatus. So this could be quite significant. Of course, these drills, they began in 2005 for humanitarian maritime cooperation purposes, and they were held in 2007 and also in 2008. And I think the last exercises were conducted in 2011. They ended during a period of strained kind of relationships between the two sides, following strengthened U.S.-South Korea exercises and, of course, the deployment of the THAAD missile defense system, which Beijing strongly opposed. So I think, as you mentioned, the timing right now is quite significant. It's quite notable, given that this announcement came just a week after Seoul and Tokyo agreed to resume their own joint naval search and rescue exercises. So those themselves had been suspended, I believe, for 9 years. So basically, within days of one another, we have South Korea having similar talks on both sides. So I think that in itself is quite significant, although I believe the Seoul-Tokyo talks would probably be a little more concrete and with Beijing, I guess it's still at a discussion stage. Of course, the broader implications of all this point to President Lee Jae-myung's balancing act that he's trying at the moment, trying to maintain the kind of U.S. alliance and security cooperation with Japan while simultaneously trying to improve ties with Beijing. But I think, of course, this was the first step, having the talks. One thing to look out for during these talks, Seoul did raise concerns about Chinese military activity in Korea's air defense identification zone, particularly after 9 Chinese and, I believe, Russian aircraft entered the zone back in December. So I think whilst there's movement definitely towards cooperation, there does still exist underlying tensions that we can't ignore. And I think Seoul, of course, is trying to navigate these difficult waters, no pun intended, and try to, play this balancing act with all parties involved.
Right. Meanwhile, across the border in North Korea, Kim Jong-un's Army Day speech for this year, Chloe, has been receiving quite a bit of attention. Could you tell us why and what are your takeaways?
Yeah, so I would say why the main reason is that everything is being analyzed at the moment because everyone wants to know when the 9th Congress for the party will be happening. According to the South Korea National Intelligence Services, it could be this month, probably at the end of the month. So I feel like every event right now happening in North Korea is being more scrutinized even than ever. It's important to see, like in the takeaways, the main thing was obviously that Kim Jong-un said that the army's irreplaceable and outstanding role, that's what he said, will be further elevated for the next 5 years to come. So that's probably something that would be announced at the Congress, since this Congress is happening every 5 years to give away the main direction for the countries for the 5 years to come. It's interesting to see that it shows the need for the regime to remind everyone of the central space taken by the army in the country. So that could be, according to some pundits, showing that the army and the military are having a bit of a hard time at the moment and are in need of a pat in the back to show that they're still a central piece of the regime. That's also because the army is playing a dual role in North Korea. So they're being used to, in the same time, obviously doing what military is supposed to do, which is protection of the country. And then they're also being used for national and large-scale construction and development projects. And we know that the country has been building up a lot of infrastructure recently. They've been opening up a lot of different places recently. So the army is in need of recognition. And then there's also another thing that is, I think, an important takeaway, is the absence of rhetoric targeting South Korea or the United States. Unlike the speeches in 2024, 2025 that the North Korean leader has been giving at the time, where he was very harsh language toward the two countries. He emphasized the war readiness of North Korea. He spoke about the nuclear capabilities. This time was very soft-worded and no direct mention to South Korea or the U.S., which is interesting to note.
Right. Quite a number of pundits, Raphael, have been saying that Kim Jong-un's speech was more like a boost for morale among his soldiers rather than an attack on South Korea or the U.S., as he did not mention neither countries. They say it's also because he is perhaps keeping in mind the expected diplomatic activity between the U.S. and China, especially following phone talks between the two leaders in recent days. What has been shared about the latest exchange between Mr. Trump and Xi Jinping?
Yeah, they had a call the other day, very extensive. I believe it lasted almost 2 hours and covered a wide range of topics and issues, though I think the key here is that the two leaders emphasized quite different things when it comes to their public readouts. Trump described the call as excellent, claimed that they had discussed Iran, trade, Taiwan, and of course his planned trip to Beijing in April, and he called the relationship with China, but also his personal relationship with Xi as extremely good, and that both sides realized the importance of keeping this to go forward. Trump also mentioned that maybe China might be buying, that there might be purchases of US soybeans and whatnot. But when we look at Xi's readout, I think what was notable that it was a little bit more pointed, particularly when it comes to Taiwan. Chinese state media said that Xi told Trump that Taiwan is the most important issue in China-US relations and warned that China will never allow Taiwan to be separated from China. So I guess, you know, this call seems to have gone well, but overall, it seems that both sides want to maintain dialogue, but underlying strategic competition does remain.
All right. I suppose we'll hear more about it when they meet in April, I believe, in Beijing, hopefully. All right. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Rafael, as always, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you very much.
Chloe, thank you very much for your time and thoughts.
Thank you.
Right. That ends this edition of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching and do join us again same time tomorrow.